let's do some bronzer, shall we? Need to add some color back into this face. I just put on foundation, not tinted moisturizer. I normally wear tinted moisturizer, which lets my skin kind of show through a little bit more, and it's a little more flexible. It's not as like one color. Foundation, on the other hand, it blank canvases my face, and I definitely need to add some color back in, so let's do it together. For bronzer, I've been doing this since I started wearing bronzer. Back in like 7th or 8th grade, I have always just bought a foundation shade or a powder that was 4 or 5 shades, 5 or 6 shades, I don't know, just a darker powder or a darker foundation, and I've always used that as my bronzer. As someone who's definitely more fair skin toned, especially when I was younger and didn't self-tan, I found that bronzer products always were a little too orange, and that was also 15 years ago. So obviously the industry has changed quite a bit since then, but it's still my favorite thing to do. I just love using a deeper shade, especially because with the makeup that I use, using the same product all over my face and then as a bronzer, I know that they're going to mesh well together. I know that they're not going to get patchy, they're not going to separate on top of each other, it's not going to pick up any product when I'm putting it down. They just blend beautifully together. So that's what I like to do. I like using the Deep Tinted Moisturizer from Senegence. It's the makeup that I have sold for the last 8.5 years. I'll link everything in the description box, but this is what I use for bronzer. Contouring, I don't even bother with contouring, to be honest. If you want a separate contour video, let me know in the comments, but contouring is done with a product that is more cool toned to mimic shadows, and versus a bronzer is going to be warm and it's going to mimic like where the sun would naturally hit. But I find that I can get the dimension that I need simply from a bronzer, and I don't need a contour with it. So I opt for just bronzing and it's enough for me. So let me show you how I like to do it. I love a cream bronzer, the way that it blends, the way that it melts into the makeup that I already have on, and then it's way longer lasting than a powder. Sometimes I'll finish with a powder on top, but I always put down the cream first. So I do a little bit, like not even a pump. Like this stops about a quarter of the way. There's like a little hitch and then you have to push past it to get a full pump. That's where I stop, is at that hitch. Like I only do the tiniest amount. A trick with bronzer is to opt for a smaller brush. Smaller brush with a little more density. It's not as dense as a foundation brush, but it's not super fluffy. It doesn't splay out everywhere when you press on it. I have a whole video on brushes. I'll link that below too if you want to see all the brushes that I use and exactly how I use them. I walked you through the whole makeup routine. Let's get into this. So we've got the product on the lid. I like to really work that product into my brush, make sure it's all dispersed in there. I don't just press it on and then start going to town, because then there's just going to be one dot right there and it's a lot harder to blend out. So really work the product into the brush, make sure it's all nice and coated and evenly dispersed, and then sometimes I'll tap off any excess on the back of my hand. So for application, this is general, like most flattering on the most amount of people, is forehead, cheekbone, jawline, a little bit on the nose. If you have a smaller forehead, you don't need to put it on your forehead. I do not have a smaller forehead, so I definitely need it on my forehead. So I'll pinch my brush so that I'm applying it a little more precisely and kind of press it on, and then blend it back into my hairline with light and kind of more pressing motions. I'm not like sweeping in big back and forth motions. I'm doing smaller pressing motions. And there's my forehead. I can go back in with my foundation brush if I need to and make sure that it's nice and blended. For the cheekbone, you don't want to go right underneath the cheekbone because that's going to drag your face down. We want to give a little bit of a lift to the face. And so I like to put my makeup brush right underneath, like straight out from the top of my ear, and feel underneath that cheekbone, and then roll my brush like a half turn. And that is where I'm going to place the bronzer. And then also you want to place it in kind of like a triangle shape. That's going to give you that lift and that pull upwards. So again, pinch the brush and I'm going to press it on. And I especially love this product in particular for bronzer because it's Since it's a tinted moisturizer, it is a little more on the sheer side, which makes it really easy to work with. It's hard to mess it up because it's not like crazy opaque and pigmented. It's a different type of tinted moisturizer. It's not gonna slip and slide all over your face. It's not going to wipe off. It stays in place, and so it works really, really well as a bronzer. So you can see I'm pressing it in, I'm blending back into my hairline. I'll bring it a little down farther, but wherever you put your brush down, that's where the most product is going to be dispersed first. And so starting back here and then working my way forward. And then I also like to do a little on the side of my nose. I don't do a full nose contour. I find that that just doesn't look as good on me in person, but a little bronze on there because when I'm out in the sun, my nose gets a little bit pink. So I'll do a little bit of bronzer on the nose and then also run kind of whatever's left under the jawline and down my neck. I'm obviously not doing this side of my face because I want to show you the difference. I kind of forgot though and did it up there. Oopsies. But once I've worked most of the product out of the brush, like there's not too much left, then I can blend in a larger area just to make sure it's all really nice and seamless. Can you see that? Then I'll take my foundation brush if I need to and just kind of clean up any edges. But here we have the bronze side. And here is no bronzer. And you can see as I'm facing forward, like that has more lift, it has more dimension. It makes my face look like slimmer, my cheekbones pop a little bit more. Bronzer is, it's so needed. Okay, let me do the other side. Okay, there we have it. Perfect bronze base, and then I'll layer my blush on top. I already have my foundation and concealer, so the face is good to go almost. Oh, bronzer is one of my favorite things. Like, I would actually probably choose bronzer over foundation. Would I choose it over blush? I don't know if I would choose it over blush, and I've got dark circles, so I don't know if I would choose it over concealer either, but if I had to pick between foundation and bronzer, it would be bronzer, hands down. All right, so hopefully you found that helpful. I will link everything in the description box below, and I will see you in my next video.